I'm going to talk about a subject. In the American Club, we're very much involved as P&I with dealing with issues that associated with our members, any problems, loss prevention related, whether it be environmental, whether it be cargo, whether it be safety related. But there's one subject that, in particular, that has a special place in my heart, and sometimes, you know, a knot in my stomach, as it relates to, and we deal with very big issues. We deal with safety management level, we deal with more corporate level issues, but we also try to deal with matters that are very much at the deck plate level. And the one issue which has been something that has not left my heart and soul for 25 years has been this issue of slips, trips, and falls. Prior to my years at American Club, I was with the Guard for 5 years. I was also with American Bureau of Shipping in New York, and this issue has been around for dog years. That keeps seemingly to be problematic for us in the industry. I now have 2 sons who are in maritime school, so that's another special, you know, interest to me, one on the engine, one on the deck. So I'd like to talk a bit about what we're doing at the American Club in cooperation with what they call the Maritime Safety Initiative and ABS, but it's particularly something that we look at in great detail at the American Club. Now, we know some of the sobering statistics. We've seen it. We have them. We have the statistics that we've collected. We have some more industry statistics on this particular subject, but in a more global, or in a larger sense, with regard to our U.S. Center of Disease Control, as well as our Department of Labor Statistics. Very sobering statistics. It's not something we don't already know, we don't already see, we don't experience ourselves. I cracked a couple ribs a couple years ago coming off of one of those flat escalators at Pudong Airport in Shanghai, so it's not something we don't experience ourselves. But 65% of fall-related injuries are on safe level walking surfaces, just like the experience that I just mentioned. We also have a very large share of them, 60%, from elevated falls, okay? Both of these are very particular to our industry also. Now, 1 in 6 of lost time injuries are the result of a slip, trip, and fall. Again, we address the issue with injuries, American Club, as do all other P&I clubs. It's something that, of course, we cover. It's an issue, but it just keeps showing up, and it keeps showing up, and sometimes they're very severe in what we actually see. And some of the reasons are safety equipment, procedures, all the things that we actually know to be a bit problematic. Slips, trips, and falls count for about 15% of fatalities, accidental fatalities, as well as most common things that we actually see and sometimes show up in our database and don't actually get a lot of detail on it, but it's a broken hip, or it's a broken leg, or it's a fractured arm, or the like, that we basically are very well aware is related to, in many cases, related to a slip, trip, or fall. Now, they're also very problematic as it relates to traumatic brain injuries. Now, as I mentioned a few moments ago, we know what we see. We know what the problems are in so many cases. We know they're on board ship, and this is a general issue whether on board ship or otherwise, but in particular for us, wet, icy, and unclean surfaces. Galley floors we see to be a bit problematic. Cleansers, proper cleansers not being used, not cleaned enough, a lot of oily, slippery surfaces. We know a lot of people like to cook with a lot of oil. We know that from our PMI program, and with too much salt and all the other things that we have. But we also look at improper footwear. We see, you know, we put out notices on footwear issues, flip-flops. We know that's a big issue, particularly for some cultures as well as some locations and temperature zones. We know it's much easier to work or to walk around. Working aloft is a very big problem that we see. Safety equipment and maintenance, poor housekeeping, all of these things. So it's not as if we don't know they're there, okay? And As do other clubs. I've seen most other clubs, and those who are speaking here, as well as others who are not, international group and otherwise, put out plenty of notices. Here's examples of what we put out, okay? But we put out a lot of documentation, a lot of safety information that goes out in the forms of notices and circulars and posters and comic books and the like, okay? But we also are trying to look at different ways to address such matters. It's something I won't talk a bit about today, but we have a wellness initiative that the American Club is going to be involved in. But a precursor to that, and something which is another project I'd like to mention a little bit here, I'll talk a little bit about today, is more on our maritime safety initiative, our mariner safety initiative that we have again with ABS in cooperation with Lamar University. This project has been active since about 2011, I think it began. This was initiated by ABS. Other classes, I'm sure, are involved in similar types of initiatives in one form or another. But they had initiated this with Lamar University, who's part of the University of Texas system, with a human factors group that they actually have down in that particular location, Maritime Human Factors Group, to be sort of the depository of data and information on incidents from ship owners, incidents, near misses, nonconformities, and the like. And actually, the information which has been collected has been quite substantive over the years. The American Club became more directly involved in 2000 and earlier this year, in January of 2018, with our particular initial focus of what we'd like to look at, very much directed on slips, trips, and falls, and by accident on lifting issues, because we've seen a lot of things pop up in both our databases as well as the near miss and reporting systems of ship owners. Now, just some initial data profiles of what we've seen with it says American injuries, should say American Club injuries. Our data profile looks something like this right now with regard to incidents that have been reported to us that we can actually try to, and we go backtrack into our systems and into our data files and see, was this related to a slip, trip, and fall, if we're able to do so. But we see falling tends to be our highest frequency of incident. I'm sorry, I get my glasses. I need my glasses. Sorry, falling, yes. Struck by and against objects, that's another subject that we will be addressing, but at a later date. But lifting seemed to pop up quite a bit. But slips, if you take between slips, trips, and falls, we're looking at somewhere about 30% of our incidents that are related to that. I actually personally think it's higher. I think that we are working on some issues with how we capture data in the future better. But here's a profile of what we've looked like for the last 15 years. Now, on the injury side, falls, strains, sprains, a lot of that put together, we're still up there in the well over around 40%, somewhere around 40%. Again, I think it's slightly higher, but from what we actually have, actually it's a bit higher than 40%, 45, almost 50% slip, trip, or fall related, incident related. So it's not something that, this is purely on our injury side, this is not something that it's attritional, it goes, over a long term, it never seems to go away, and it's something that we want to try to address a little better in what we do. Now, what's very interesting, because we don't see near-miss data as a club, P&I Club for the most part, but what has been captured by the MSRI is quite interesting on the slips, trips, and fall, on the near misses, where they're looking at, here's their profile of what they see on near misses. Now, there are about well over 100 people in the room. I'm sure we have about 200 different definitions of what constitutes a near miss, okay? Because we've been debating this issue for well over 25 years. I have my doctorate degrees in naval architecture, but I did it my dissertation was on human error in our industry, and we're still grappling with it. We grappled with it then, we're grappling with it now. But the way information is reported by a lot of companies, I've had a lot of discussion with a lot of our members. on how they report near misses. Basically, I wouldn't say this for them all, but for a good share of them, they very much collect their near-miss data to make sure they get 2 or 3 near-miss reports per month per ship, so that they can comply with the ISM requirements. I've heard that more than once, and I've heard it, it's quite an interesting philosophy. You know, okay, we have to report, we have the near-miss reporting requirement, let's make sure vessels are reporting. So this is how, in many ways, it's actually showing up. There's a compliance mentality to it. I don't say that as a bad thing. It is a difficult subject, and there are no clear guidelines or no clear information on how to actually collect and to report that information. So, moving on with the MSRI. We are encouraging, we at American Club are involved in this project, as I mentioned. We're sharing data which is sanitized. Lamar University sanitizes the data from ship owner parties. Ship owner parties. There are 30 ship owners from all different walks of the industry who are involved with this. We on the American Club, we've been encouraging our members to participate, to either sanitize data before they send it in, or it's sent to Lamar University. They sanitize it for our research purposes. And there's more information on that in these sites. And there are some benefits for those who are actually industry sponsors in the MSRI with regard to reporting, benchmarking of information and the like. So I encourage you to look at that website. So I'm going to end here. We're taking this issue much more seriously. I hope to be reporting more in detail on how we're handling this along our project in about a year from now in detail. There are some issues we'll have to look at with regard to design of ships. This matter came up when I was at APS. We had a lot of discussion with shipbuilders on this particular subject when it first came up. But we want to look at a different way to address this matter. We think it needs a lot more attention, and it needs a lot more attention than just putting out regular safety notices. On that note, I'll leave it at that. Ευχαριστώ for taking time to listen to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much.